Hi, everyone. My name is Kim. I am the Children and Young Adult Consultant with the Connecticut State Library. We are so happy that you all were able to join us for this year's Teen Summit. I'm having a blast. I hope y'all are having a blast. I'm really excited to be able to introduce our next speaker. Kathy Potter is the Children and Teen Librarian of the East Hartford Public Library. We got too many H's, in East Hartford, Connecticut. Kathy has been working with children and families in libraries for over 25 years and has been in East Hartford since 2018. In East Hartford, her responsibilities include teens, and she's been working to create programs to meet their needs both creatively and educationally to relax and recharge. Kathy enjoys cooking. I made really great dinner last night, and I thought about you, Kathy. Gardening. I don't have one of those. I live in an apartment. Hiking, I love to do that. We should connect. And counted cross-stitching. And in 2006, Kathy was the Time Magazine Person of the Year. And if that is shocking to anybody here, like it was to me, I'm going to drop in a little link for you so that you can read all about it. But I heard about this program that Kathy is doing from a little thing we do in Connecticut called CT Pages, where she gave us a little introduction to it. And so I'm really excited to be able to hear a longer version of the little snippet of information that she gave us. Kathy, thank you for giving us part of your Friday.
Thanks, Kim. Thanks for inviting me to be here today. I am really excited to share this program with other people that are serving teens, and hopefully they can take bits and pieces, make it their own, and do it at their library too. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay. So like Kim said, I've been in East Hartford here for almost 4 years now, but working in libraries with children and teens for a long time. I had been previously doing mostly children's work with a little bit of teens sprinkled in here and there, but now it's definitely under my umbrella. And today I wanted to talk to you about a program that I started a couple of years ago called the Youth Summer Career Bridging Workshops. And they are a series of workshops that were developed to help teens and opportunity youth gain the skills and deliverables to apply for and obtain a job. And this project was made possible in part by the Institute of Museum and Library Services under the provisions of the Library Services and Technology Act, administered by the Connecticut State Library. And East Hartford received $4,800 in grant funding when this program first began. So a little bit, oh, here we go, there we go. So a little bit about East Hartford. The town is located to the east of the capital, Hartford, along the banks of the Connecticut River. Sorry, my phone is restarting. It has evolved from a mainly agricultural town to one with a mix of small businesses to the home of airplane engine maker Pratt & Whitney. And it is also home to about 50,000 residents, including a large community of immigrants, and is number 2 on the state's diversity index. Developed by the Census Bureau, the diversity index measures the probability that 2 people chosen at random will be from different race and ethnicity groups. So East Hartford also ranks higher than the state average in food, housing, and transportation insecurities, and half of the children under the age of 17 are below the poverty threshold. So having skills to apply for and obtain a job is essential to economic advancement. So my original thoughts in applying for an LSTA grant administered by the state library was to fund an initiative for early literacy. For me, that would have been an easy win. I did a lot with early literacy, so that would have been super easy. But during a meeting for the Head Start Policy Council, the head nutritionist talked about a program that she was starting to have teens work in community gardens during the summer of 2020. And I like to be punny and say that the seed was planted then. And luckily, my director, Sarah Mogren, immediately saw the potential in creating a series of workshops for teens to better prepare them to enter the workforce. And Sarah is part of the Boston Federal Reserve's Working Cities Challenge East Hartford cohort, which is an initiative that created East Hartford Connects, now known as East Hartford Works. And the initiative's goals are to assist residents with career development and educational resources and to foster community engagement. Neighborhood residents are strongly incorporated into the initiative's leadership, and initiative director Amy Pelletier and career navigator Yadira Jetter have hosted and are planning more events to help other residents understand the employment, educational, and other resources that are available for them, and to train residents in leadership and community engagement. And events they've facilitated are career fairs at the schools, a resident advisory council, and the Professional Skills Academy, which helps adults gain or enhance their workforce readiness. So this project for teens fit in well with what the library and the community was already doing to help with employment in East Hartford. So during the grant writing process, I needed to connect what I wanted to do with the supporting research and discovered that the National Association of Colleges and Employers, they've identified 8 competencies, which are career and self-development. And that is proactively developing oneself and one's career through continual personal and professional learning, awareness of one's strengths and weaknesses, navigation of career opportunities, and networking to build relationships within and without one's organization. The next one's communication, and that's to clearly and effectively exchange information, ideas, facts, and perspectives with persons inside and outside of an organization. Critical thinking, identify and respond to needs based upon an understanding of situational context and logical analysis of relevant information. Equity and inclusion, demonstrate the awareness, attitude, knowledge, and skills required to equitably engage and include people from different local and global cultures. Engage in anti-racist practices that actively challenge the systems, structures, and policies of racism. Leadership, recognize and capitalize on personal and team strengths to achieve organizational goals. Professionalism, knowing work environments differ greatly, understand and demonstrate effective work habits, and act in the interest of the larger community and workplace. Teamwork, build and maintain collaborative relationships to work effectively toward common goals while appreciating diverse viewpoints and shared responsibilities. And lastly, technology, understanding and leveraging technologies ethically to enhance efficiencies, complete tasks, and accomplish goals. So I use these competencies to drive the framework for the workshops and the topics to be covered. And I wanted to say too, if anyone has any questions while I'm doing the presentation, please put them in the chat, and Kim will very kindly interrupt me so that I can try and answer your questions. Thank you. So in addition to filling the needs gap as a teen librarian, I wanted to encourage self-sufficiency, promote healthy teen development, support their transition from high school to the job market, and help create a pathway for economic advancement. I had a core group of teens that attended teen advisory board meetings and participated in programs and used the library for studying. So it seemed like an easy series to make successful, but little did I know how much their lives and ours would change that year. So the National Association of Colleges Employers offers more detail for each of the competencies on their website, and they also include presentation slides and other materials that can be downloaded. You could use them to support a grant application or something like that, or if you needed to do a presentation on why this program would be good for your library, that's a great place to find out more materials. And during the registration process for the actual workshops, we asked participants to share if they needed any extra supports to be successful in the workshops. And I found that Autism Speaks offers an employment toolkit with worksheets, which walks a person through the job seeking and application process. And I had it ready to use if the need arose. But Autism Speaks was the only resource I found at the time. So if anyone has a resource to share, please put it in the chat. So here's how it started. Our original plan would be that sessions would be offered during spring vacation week of 2021, Monday through Friday, a morning, afternoon, and an afternoon session. And this was the calendar that we created. My coworker, Sam Partney, along with an employee of the school district, Vincent Crawford, we worked together to come up with this schedule, and we thought it would serve the most teens by swapping the AM and PM sessions. So we actually offered both sessions, so we offered both sessions in the morning. We also offered both sessions in the afternoon. And then hoping to increase the number of choices. And then we submitted this as part of the grant application. And I just want to point out too, we did come up with a logo that's in the bottom right-hand side, very representative of East Hartford, and just, trying to show the time of year, the water with the river. We have a few bridges that connect to East Hartford from Hartford, and they're very iconic. And just the fact that these were workshops trying to bridge students from education to employment. So to ensure that the grant funds would be spent on programs that teens actually wanted, we were asked to conduct surveys. Using the community co-design session tools from Excite for Libraries, including an empathy map, we conducted surveys and facilitated conversations with as many students as we could to learn what would serve them best and made changes to our plans. And I have to say, this process was the most interesting and valuable part of this work, asking the questions, waiting for and listening to their responses, and having the power to make changes based on their feedback. That was all really critical. And this process also changed what we thought the teens wanted into something that they actually wanted. So after the co-design sessions, we were ready to make changes to the workshops and invite more partners to the table. So instead of offering the same workshops both in the morning and in the afternoon, we only offered them once during the week, and then made changes to what workshops were being offered based on what we heard from the teens. So Monday morning session on resumes and cover letters was presented by a fellow staff member, Jason Pannone, who's the head of reference and cultural assets here. And together we created an informational sheet with resumes and cover letter tips and a list of action words. Plus we included sites for interview tips and job searches and library resources. Monday afternoons, training and certification session included information on sexual harassment for youth, tips for completing the FAFSA, certifications that were available and how to access them, and resources available from the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act through the American Job Center. Tuesday morning's workplace conflict and communication session was presented by social workers at East Hartford Public by social workers at East Hartford Youth Services. And the afternoon's mock interviews was a series of breakout rooms. We had 3 different breakout rooms, and we had volunteers that conducted mock interviews. And both the interviewers and the participants received the questions in advance. And then youth had the opportunity to learn from each other because they were placed in groups in the breakout rooms. And they also learned from the interviewers. And this was a great thing that happened because all of the interviewers wanted to be able to keep in touch with the participants that they worked with and offered up their email and contact information so that if anyone had any questions or wanted to practice more, they could reach out and make arrangements to do that. So that was a really powerful session. Wednesday morning for the Credit for Life Fair, we had volunteers from Liberty Bank, which is a local regional bank in Connecticut, and they conducted a Credit for Life Fair. Luckily, they'd already had a bit of experience doing the Credit for Life Fair in person, but they'd never done it virtually. So this was something new. We again used breakout rooms to put people in that were doing the volunteers and then also the participants so that they could go around and learn about various aspects of a household budget. The youth or the participants all had to select a career, and our contact from Liberty Bank gave out information on what the projected income would be for that career so that each participant would have a dollar figure to work with in selecting or making choices for their budget items. So Wednesday afternoon, we held the follow-up financial literacy, and that included a follow-up for the Credit for Life Fair that went a bit longer, or we knew it was going to go longer Wednesday morning. And we just started out the session in the afternoon and followed up to see if any of the participants had questions or any, feedback on how the fair went. And then we also had a presentation from a local credit union, and we had a presentation about debt, saving, and W-9s. Thursday morning, we had building our professional network session, and this was a way for us to focus on ways for youth to network and build their resumes. A lot of times filling out a resume, they can't really think of or know that there are opportunities for them to volunteer and then be able to put that on their resume, showing that they have learned some skills that would be applicable in the job market. So we heard from a voting activist, a food bank coordinator, an environmental scientist, a town council member, an entrepreneur, and a community activist. And then Thursday afternoon, the participants came to the library to be photographed for their LinkedIn headshots. On Friday afternoon, morning, we had an applying for a job session, and everyone learned about obtaining working papers, how to keep track of the application process, how to find municipal jobs, and what they can expect during the application and interview process. And then Friday afternoon, we culminated with a job fair, and we hosted representatives from Amazon, the YMCA, East Hartford Parks and Recreation, 2 different grocery stores, a daycare center, and a summer youth employment and learning program. So I just want to show, I know, I'm breaking the rule on slides by having so much information here, but I wanted to show you that we had a ton of partners for that week's programs, and we could not have done it without all of them. I was basically the only staff member who facilitated the workshops that year. And we had lots of people that, when asked, they were more than happy to say yes to help us with all of the workshops.
Have your stuff. Thank you.
So during April 2021, the library was still operating under limited hours and space. So we held the workshops virtually through Zoom. We used meetings and webinars. And our promotion for the program was primarily digital. It was shared through the library and partner channels, and registration was through Google Forms. On Zoom, I had a buddy for each session to help with tech issues and monitor chat. And for most of the webinars, once the main presentation was finished, we made the participants presenters so they could interact with and ask questions directly. The photo shoot was the only session that was held in person, and it was managed using Sign Up Genius. So the center photo just shows what the setup was for the photographer. It did not take up a whole lot of space, and the ceiling height is a normal ceiling height. They are not, extended or overly high. And he brought all of his equipment and set up and did an amazing job getting everyone to feel comfortable in having their photos taken. The two pictures on the right, the top one is from 2021, the bottom's 2022, and I was his test subject so that he could test lighting and all of that stuff. So as you can see, he did not touch up my photos. He really had a rule, unless you had, something major, maybe you had hair that was in your face, or I don't know, something that he really left everyone natural, which I thought was awesome. So then he sent out the link to the images to me, and I downloaded and emailed them out to everybody who had their photo taken. And then in preparation for all of the virtual workshop sessions, I drafted emails to presenters and participants for each of the workshops in advance and sent them out the night before with unique Zoom links. This was in the beginning of doing, well, a little further into doing everything through Zoom, but there's still a little bit of a learning curve at that point. But having all of that stuff done in advance made it really easy to quickly make edits or include documents and add the emails of last minute participants. And for the most part, the technology worked. I did get some feedback that most presenters wanted to have more of a calendar invite so that they could make sure to have it on their calendar instead of just an email. So I made note of that to include that for next time. So year 2, in 2022, we again offered the workshop series during spring vacation week. And this past year, it allowed for 4 days instead of 5 due to the Good Friday federal holiday. So the workshops were offered only in the morning, and snacks and water were provided. And we started off the week on Monday with resumes and cover letters. And that was presented by the Urban League of Greater Hartford. And then Tuesday, we had the social media and LinkedIn photo shoot. We had some staff members, Jason Panone and Anna Eisen, do the social media 101 presentation. We asked the photographer back because he did such a fantastic job the first year. On Wednesday, we held the Credit for Life Fair and did that in person this time. So that was exciting. I'll show you some pictures about that in a second. And then, for the Credit for Life Fair, participants either used a phone or we brought down our library iPads so that they could access the Credit for Life Fair online, because they had developed, it used to be all paper-based, and now they develop a web-based presentation for that. Sorry about that. So now they could tally everything right in the web app. And then on Thursday, we held 2 job fairs. There were 45-minute sessions back to back with employers, and the teens learned about job opportunities with Laz Parking, Silva's Youth of Today, which is a daycare center, the East Hartford Parks and Recreation, Arbors of Hot Brook Retirement Community, Dollar Tree, ShopRite, which is a grocery store, and the Summer Youth Employment and Learning Program. And all of the jobs offer teens a potential career and not just a job. That was a goal for us, not to just have fast food or places like that come and do presentations offering positions. We really wanted teens to have better opportunities than that. So if you want to take a minute to open up your phone's camera, you can take this survey, just asking you what your first job was when you received a paycheck. I did this each time or each year because I wanted to connect the teens with the adults who were doing the presentations. So I asked each presentation presenter to share what their first job was that they received a paycheck. And I wanted teens to see that where someone is today isn't necessarily where they started out, and that there are opportunities available that they may not have explored, but that offer experiences and lessons that they can apply, that can be applied to future jobs and goals. In introducing each speaker the first year, I included this information, and in the second year, the speakers themselves used the information as a springboard to connect to the teens in attendance. Speakers told me that they enjoyed thinking about their job progression and that it helped them to connect to the teens and remember what it was like to be a teen getting their first job. And sharing this information also helped the teens to see that a first job may not be what they'd like for a career, but the skills learned can be applied to future jobs. Oh, I think I skipped. Hold on, there we go. So here are some shots from our career fair. I'm sorry, from the Credit for Life fair. We had a dietitian, we had someone representing higher education, we had a realtor, we had people representing the lifestyle booth there. They talked about internet services. What would it be to be on your own? How much does it cost to get your own plan? We had housing representatives. We had someone who talked about vacations, trying to remember that you still need to have some kind of fun in your life. You can't just have all work and no play. So this was an interesting experience for them. And the Credit for Life web-based app actually kind of tested their knowledge as they were going through and inputting different information into the budget lines. So they didn't, so they really got a lot more out of it. And then these are scenes from our job fair. The participants first listened to the stories of the employers and how they got started. And then they shared information about what jobs were available in their organizations and an overview of the job responsibilities, and answered any questions that the participants had. And then at the close of each panel, we invited the participants to approach the employers and ask for more detailed questions or collect application materials. They were ready to apply and talk more with all of the employers. So that was awesome to see. So some success stories from the 2 years so far. I know one person obtained a job at Pratt & Whitney, and 2 people were hired through the Summer Youth Employment Internship Program. The person that was hired by Pratt & Whitney was an Opportunity Youth participant, which is considered ages 15 to 24 and not in school and not working. and they had already graduated from high school, but they hadn't entered the workforce. But they were also engaged with some of the programs that were being led by East Hartford Works. So they were definitely in the process of looking for a job and trying to figure out what information they needed to learn to be successful. And the summer youth employment interns were given preference in the application process for attending the workshops, which they didn't know ahead of time that they were going to be given preference, but they decided that they had gone the extra, they had made extra effort to attend the workshops, and it made sense for them to get some preference. So one of the interns had mentioned just in casual conversation that they wanted to be a paramedic, and a new program was in process with the East Hartford paramedics. And so they spent time in the summer learning from them, and then a program at the high school was just being implemented this year. So they got into that program as well. And our second intern, and turned out they worked here at our makerspace, which was awesome, but you never know what information you're going to learn. Sometimes just during those casual conversations or icebreakers, and just as part of that trust process that happened throughout the week with the workshops.
Kathy, we had a question. I think you did mention that someone wound up working in the makerspace in the library, but as a result of this sort of training series, did anyone wind up working at the library or expressing interest in working at the library?
Not yet. At the time that we had been doing the internships, we were at the library was kind of in tandem. We were just going through the process of whether we were going to be a host for some interns. I would like to in the future figure out how to make library internships a more steady part of this whole process, whether it's a year-long, because they do have money where it could be a year-long internship. So I would like to see if we can make that happen. We did end up in total, we had 5 interns here at the library this summer. So I actually don't know if the intern who was hired for the makerspace did expressly state that they wanted to work at the library. I wasn't privy to their application materials, but because that was done by the East Hartford Work staff, and they did the matching with what sites were available, what the skills were of the applicants, and all of that, whether they could get to a location or not. So
thanks.
Yeah. Okay, so for next year, the workshops are again going to be held during the spring vacation week, April 10th through the 14th, but I haven't started planning those yet. But I do know that I want to include the resumes and cover letter program, the Credit for Life fair, and the job fair. I'm not sure about the LinkedIn headshots unless we get skew older, or try to get older participants, because some of the participants that we had this past year were not yet old enough to have LinkedIn accounts. So that made it really frustrating for them. They weren't able to access or complete a profile on LinkedIn. But I don't know, I still think it's worth it to have the photo shoot there. So probably will be a part of it. And since this has been such an iterative process over the last 2 years, I really think it's time to go back to the students to find out what their needs are going to be. The jobs outlook is so different than it was in 2020, and due to changes in staffing at the high school, the business partner, or the school business partnership, was a program that connected students with businesses in the area, and that is no longer active. So I think there may be teens that and opportunity youth that have even less knowledge about what opportunities are available and need more support developing resume and cover letters. So before I close, I know the question of the day is going to be, what about the budget? What did you spend your money on? So here it is. So this is the original grant budget information. And so limitations due to COVID required that some changes were made to the approved budget. We'd originally planned to have the salary of 2 staff members covered and offer transportation vouchers such as bus passes and gas cards, but those weren't necessary for virtual workshops. Funds were then reallocated to obtain a Zoom webinar license and for career books for children. The supplies were used for resume paper, notebooks, pens, earbuds, and folders, and those were distributed at our pickup window in 2021, and then during each workshop in 2022. And any supplies that were left over, we shared those with this year's Summer Youth Employment and Learning Program participants to support the goals of that program. And in 2022, the only budget items that we had were that we paid for the photographer and water and snacks. And our partner, East Hartford Works, supplied gift cards for daily drawings and pizza after Friday's job fair. And I continue to purchase career books to enhance the college and career books in the teen section, and also purchase career books for the children's section, but those come out of my annual book budget. I do think that this series could be scaled up to include lunch or stipends for speakers, and it could be scaled down by having a volunteer or staff member photograph participants, or you could just offer fewer workshops. Another thought I've had is that these could be turned into monthly workshops, but I haven't done anything to make that change. For us right now, it's working well doing it over the April or spring vacation week. So I'm going to share my contact information. So please, this would be an awesome time if you have questions. I'd love to answer them. And I will stop sharing my screen so that I can quickly just share out what the word cloud looks like for those first jobs.
Oh, okay. I did the word cloud, but I was like, are we supposed to do this?
Yes.
Your question about first jobs really got the chat moving, Kathy. I mean, then it moved from first jobs to Black Friday. It did. Oh. Then everyone thinks we're toddlers. I mean, it has been a journey.
So here I've got the word cloud. There we go. Hold on. There we go. All right. So cashier at Navy Federal.
That was me.
Aha. Napa Auto Parts, vet assistant, toy store, Mr. Donut, coach, helper, cashier, librarian, busser, lifeguard, florist, retail, craft store.
Someone's first job was a librarian. That's awesome.
No, info services librarian. And you're still here. Woo. Awesome. So lots of service industry. Oh, somebody must have just added one. Yeah, lots of service industry jobs or food service. That's really cool. I learned about a new tool yesterday. I'll stop sharing this because I am actually involved in a reinventing our communities that is also focused on job work. So I learned about a tool where you can put in your current job, and it will list skills that you have, and then jobs that those skills could translate to, and the percentage match that it would be, and what your projected income would be. So it's kind of a cool tool to see, because I think people don't always think that their skills are transferable and into what career. Do I have the name of the tool? I do. Let me see if I can find it.
And if there are any more questions, y'all are killing me in the chat. It's hysterical. We all look like toddlers, and we were all scarred by Black Friday. If there are any other questions while Kathy is looking for the name of this tool, feel free to drop them in the chat. I also know that sometimes questions are hard to type because you kind of have to fumble through to figure out the answer. So if anyone would like to unmute, I think you can just sort of use the raise hand button and we can let you do that. Oh, do you see this one? Anyone have recommendations for career books for teens? So Kathy, if you have some, or if other people have some, to drop those in.
Do actually, we created a whole book list, so I could send that to you, Kim, because
yes, yeah, if you can send that to me, Kathy, I can put that in the virtual tote bag under this program folder so that everyone can grab those for sure.
Okay. And I also see that someone posted in the chat about an autistic advocacy
yes
tool for job resource, which is awesome. Thank you for.
Yeah, and I grabbed that link and put that also in the folder just in case anyone loses it. Nicole, I see your hands up. Go ahead.
Yes, sorry, I didn't want to interrupt, but I did unmute. I was just wondering, sorry, as I try to lower my hand at the same time. I was wondering, in terms of career books, my issue with them has always been that it feels like they just become out of date very quickly. So I'm wondering what people look for in career books for teens, because I tend to think, well, if they look at it when they're 14, it's probably not going to help them by the time they're like graduated high school.
Well, according to the chat, what color is your parachute never goes out of style.
This is true.
I just typed in the chat that reading that book is the only reason I went to library school. Otherwise, I'd probably still, I don't know, be working at Express in Ohio. I've no idea. Do you have any thoughts, Kathy? You never heard of it? Ella, my dad basically threw that book at me like every year, telling me to get my life together.
We were very specific in the search that we did, and I am lucky to have a resource of someone who is a very thorough searcher. So, and we only looked at books that were published within like the first few years, or most recent. And actually several of the books that we selected weren't even in print yet. So we, ordered them, but they were coming out like, so they're brand new. As far as search terms, I think it was actually by looking at certain occupations, like there's a series. Oh, of course, I can't think of it now, but I will put the list, give it to Kim so that she can share it with everybody so you can see the types of books. But we really looked at some more modern careers instead of more like classic careers that people might be thinking about.
That's a good question.
Okay, thank you. Because I asked that because I weeded our entire career section because it was so out of date. It's like,
Yes.
You were checking that out, but also it's terribly out of date.
Yeah.
Leanne. Oh, sorry, Kathy.
That's okay.
Oh, Leanne, did you raise your hand on accident? Oh, there you are.
No, I did. No, I put it down because I also had to like find out how to do that. So I just dropped in the chat this series I stumbled across actually in Ingram because I was doing the same thing, like reading through our career guides because they were god awful. And they're throwing in Littlefield's practical career guides, and I really like them because, like Kathy was saying, it's more up to date careers. They're like, I threw the link in there. It's like video game entrepreneurs and media specialists and just journalists, but media and journalists, like, so that it's actually two, and they're short. They're not like that giant 1,000-page, doorstop that is usually downstairs, not even, well, our reference department's downstairs, in the adult reference area. and they're nice, and they can flip through them, and it's like, what do you need to do to go into these fields? What classes should you take? What should you do for extracurriculars? What should, what kind of companies should you be looking into? So it's really, really nice. And like I said, they're short, they're like 100, 130 pages. And they're brand new. Well, relatively, from like 2020 to 2022. So, and that's, again, really hard to do, but you're actually if able to get them. Ingram actually has them. So I don't know. I know some of us are limited by who you can buy out of. Ingram has them, Baker and Taylor has them, and obviously I think Amazon's got them too.
What was the title of the series?
It's the practical, I dropped the link in the chat, is Practical Career Guides from Rowan and Littlefield.
I just dropped it in there for you again. And these, thank you for sharing this very much, Leanne, because I'm looking and it's not just like, I don't know, like the types of jobs like my parents were looking for. My parents are super young, so they're really bad. Like my grandmother was looking for, right? They've got like plumber and electrician and cosmetologist.
Crafters. They have craft.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like stuff that you have to go to a four-year college for. Like it's really a little bit of everything. I thought it was very comprehensive and very well done.
Yeah, this is great. Because millennials, that's my generation. They were like, if you don't go to a four-year college, you will be poor, you will live under a bridge, and you will only eat bread that should be for pigeons, right? Like that's sort of what they drilled into our heads. But Gen Z is not here about that life. They really are looking at some of these other quote unquote non-traditional. Man, I wish I had a reason to buy these. I don't, because I'm at the boring state job.
Can the state library lend them out to other libraries? There you go.
That means someone has to borrow them. So if I buy them, y'all got to borrow them.
I'm not in Connecticut, or else I would.
Dang. Connecticut, call me. Okay, I'm just checking if there are any other questions or chatter. We've still got some time.
And we also did buy because they have so you want to work in whatever field, we did buy some of those as well. That was one of the also available options down at the bottom of the page. Those are awesome.
Questions? Well, I can tell you I'm definitely gonna want an update for year 3. And if people want to know what it's like to be a special random librarian at the career fair, call me. I'll go.
I would love that. Except, well,
I know.
Yeah.
No,
I that actually has been on my mind a lot, because how do we get more people of color into the library field, and having that as part of the job fair?
it's hard to know what a librarian is. I'm sure this is something that we've all seen, even if it's sort of talking to friends at the dinner table. I'm sure everyone has heard at least once you need a master's degree for that. And I don't know about y'all, but I get very much in my feelings and just sort of want to like climb on my soapbox about that. So
It's the yes, and I worked hard for that.
Sure did, man. It took me 5 years to get that thing.
Yeah.
Or people still use the library. Yes. Oh no! Looking at Narragansett Library, I can't even.
No. Oh, great idea, Cheyenne.
Yeah, congratulations on your graduation.
Yes.
Awesome. All right. Well, if there are no other questions, we can just take like a slightly longer break. This was a good session. Thank you so much, Kathy, for giving us a little bit of your Fridays. I know Fridays are typically hard staffing days, especially so close to the holiday. So thank you so much.